Who poured salt in my batter? Zinnia's voice shook through the kitchen like thunder. Her hands trembled as she lifted the bowl. Her cake mixture, which was smooth and creamy, had turned into a grainy mess. The smell was wrong, bitter, and sharp. Her dream, the one she had worked for weeks to perfect, was ruined. Behind her, soft laughter echoed. 3 girls stood near the pantry door, pretending to check their trays. Vanessa, the tallest of them, folded her arms and smiled like she was watching a show. Maybe you should stick to modeling, she said sweetly. Pretty girls don't always win in real kitchens. The laughter grew. Zinnia's anger rose further, but she didn't cry. She took off her apron, laid it neatly on the counter, and whispered, "You will see me rise, even from this mess." Her voice was calm, but her heart was shaking. 2 months earlier, Zinnia had stood outside the grand gates of Royal Culinary Academy, clutching her admission letter like treasure. Her palms were sweaty. Her eyes glistened with disbelief. The academy was everything she had imagined. The buildings had white marble walls, glass doors that sparkled like sugar, and the faint smell of vanilla drifting through the air. It was the best culinary school in the country, a place for the rich, the polished, and the already famous. Zinnia didn't belong there. At least, that's what everyone thought. She was the daughter of a roadside baker, a woman who sold sweet buns and meat pies beside a dusty bus stop. From the time she could walk, Zinnia's life was tough. She learned to knead before she learned to write her name. Every birthday cake she made for her mother was shaped unevenly, but tasted good. So when the acceptance letter came, her mother cried until her apron was wet. "God finally remembered us," she whispered, pressing her forehead against Zinnia's shoulder. "Make us proud, my daughter. And stay humble, no matter how high you rise." On her first day, Zinnia's heart raced as she stepped into the main hall. Rows of students stood in their spotless aprons, chatting in confident tones. They looked like people who had never known hunger or heat. Her own uniform, though clean, wasn't new. Her shoes were polished, but slightly worn. Still, when she smiled, she glowed. Heads turned, and whispers followed. "She's new. She's gorgeous. She probably came on a scholarship." In her first class, Chef Henry, the academy's head instructor, handed her a mixing bowl. "Show me how you fold batter," he said. Zinnia's fingers trembled for a moment. Then, it steadied. Her movements were slow, deliberate, as if she was telling a story with every stir. When she finished, Chef Henry blinked and said, "Perfect." He turned to the others. "Watch her hands. That's how you treat a cake, with respect." The class went quiet. Zinnia's cheeks flushed. And somewhere in the back row, Vanessa's smile faded. Vanessa had been the academy's star since her first semester. She is rich, confident, and always camera-ready. Her father owned a hotel chain. Her cakes were average, but her charm filled every room. Until Zinnia arrived. The tutors started calling on Zinnia more often. She was asked to demonstrate techniques, to plate desserts, and to mentor juniors. Chef Henry once joked that if baking were a religion, Zinnia would be its saint. That joke cost Zinnia her peace. By the 3rd week, her locker was vandalized. A note written in pink icing read, "Pretty faces don't last in hot kitchens." Her baking tools went missing. Her name was scribbled on restroom mirrors. She smiled through it all, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break down. But when she got home each night, she cried into her pillow, quietly, so her mother wouldn't hear her. There was one person who tried to be kind to her, Maya, a quiet girl who sat beside her in class. Maya admired Zinnia's grace, but also feared the attention that followed her. "You should be careful," Maya whispered one afternoon. "Vanessa doesn't like competition." Zinnia smiled tiredly. "I'm not competing with anyone. I just love to bake." Maya looked down at her dough. "That's the problem. People like Vanessa only understand power, not passion." Their friendship grew slowly, with small chats between lessons and quiet laughs during baking practice. But even that made Vanessa furious. Rumors began to spread that Zinnia flirted with Chef Henry, that she cheated on tests, that she uses her beauty to distract the judges during tastings. Chef Henry tried to protect her, but gossip travels faster than truth. Soon, Zinnia became the girl everyone watched like a hawk, but very few spoke to. At the start of the 2nd term, the Academy announced its biggest event, the Crown Cake Challenge. It is going to be a national competition, with cameras, sponsors, and fame. The The winner would get a full scholarship to study in Paris. Zinnia's heart leapt. This was her dream, a chance to prove herself through sugar, flour, and a hot oven. Every evening, she stayed back in the kitchen after class. She practiced layering, sculpting, piping roses, and balancing flavors. Her design was bold, a three-tier blush cake shaped like blooming petals, symbolizing growth after pain. Sometimes, Chef Henry would stop by. "Perfection takes patience," he would say, watching her whisk her batter. Zinnia would smile and reply with, "Then I'll wait as long as it takes." But Vanessa was watching too, from a distance, her jealousy simmering like hot caramel. The night before the competition, the kitchen buzzed with nervous energy. Students prepped their ingredients, checking measurements twice. Vanessa walked over to Zinnia's station with a fake smile. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked. "As ready as I can be," Zinnia replied, polite but distant. Vanessa leaned closer. "You know, not everyone loves golden girls. Just be careful." When Zinnia turned away to fetch her piping tools, Vanessa's hand moved quickly. She grabbed Zinnia's jar of sugar, poured it out, and replaced it with salt. Then she smiled at her reflection in a steel bowl. "Let's see how perfect you are now." The next morning, the Academy's grand hall shimmered with lights. Judges in crisp white coats. Cameras flashing. Students lined up beside their cakes. Zinnia's heart beat fast, but she was calm. Her cake looked divine, with soft pink frosting, delicate petals, gold dust glinting. She smiled as the judges approached. The first judge took a bite and frowned. Then, he took another spoonful. His face twisted. "This is salty," he said, confused. The audience murmured. Someone laughed. Then the laughter grew. Did she put salt instead of sugar? Oh my God, she calls herself the Golden Girl. Zinnia's chest was beating too fast. The wall seemed to close in on her. Her vision blurred, and the sound of laughter turned into waves crashing inside her head. She turned and ran out, past the cameras, the whispers, the pity. Her dream had just collapsed in front of the entire school. The academy emptied out by evening. Zinnia sat alone in the kitchen, surrounded by dirty bowls and shattered hopes. She traced her fingers along the counter, remembering how happy she once felt here. She whispered, "Maybe they were right. Maybe I'm not meant for this." Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother which read, "Keep baking. Don't let one bitter taste destroy your sweetness." Zinnia closed her eyes. Tears slid down her cheeks. She stood up, tied her apron again, and opened the pantry. She worked throughout the night with resilience. When the oven dinged, she opened it. It was a golden perfection. She smiled weakly as she muttered, This is me." At that moment, Chef Henry walked in and stopped, his eyes wide. "Zinnia, you're still here?" She nodded. He tasted her cake. Silence filled the room. Then he whispered, "This is divine." His expression hardened. "So who replaced your sugar?" The next morning, chaos erupted. Chef Henry called an emergency meeting. The surveillance footage was checked. The truth spilled like milk. Vanessa's hand was caught, clearly switching the salt and sugar jars. Everyone gasped. Vanessa tried to deny it, but the evidence was too clear. The principal's voice was firm as she said, "You have brought shame to this academy." Vanessa's eyes darted toward Zinnia, not apologetic, but bitter. She was suspended indefinitely. Zinnia said nothing. She just stood there, quietly, like someone who had already won the invisible war. That afternoon, the principal made an announcement, saying that the judges have agreed to give Miss Zinnia a fair chance to present her cake again. The hall was packed once more. Everyone was filled with curiosity. Zinnia walked to the center, her heart pounding. Her new cake stood tall and flawless, with soft blush frosting, edible pearls, and gentle gold shimmer. As she lifted the cover, the entire hall inhaled at once. When the judges tasted it, they didn't speak for a moment. Then one of them smiled and declared, This is perfection." Applause erupted, louder than she had ever imagined. Students who once mocked her now clapped until their palms turned red. Zinnia bowed slightly, her eyes wet. For once, her tears tasted like sugar, not salt. A few weeks passed. Zinnia graduated top of her class. A magazine called her the girl with golden hands. Her story spread online as an inspiration. With her scholarship, she traveled to Paris, studied under world-renowned chefs, and learned that success, just like dough, must rise slowly. 2 years later, she returned home. She opened her bakery, Zinnia's golden hands, on a quiet street lined with flowering trees. The windows glowed soft pink. The scent of cinnamon and vanilla drifted outside. Customers queued every morning. She hired Maya as her head assistant. Together, they built a haven of sweetness, laughter, and peace. One warm afternoon, as the bakery bustled, the glass door opened, and Vanessa stepped inside. She looked older, thinner, her confidence dimmed. "Zinnia," she said softly. Zinnia turned, surprised but calm. Vanessa looked around, her eyes glistening as she said, "Your place is beautiful." Zinnia smiled faintly and replied, "Thank you." There was a long silence. Then, Vanessa whispered, "I'm sorry. For everything." Zinnia paused, watching her closely. "Do you really mean it?" Vanessa nodded and continued, "I was jealous. You had everything I wanted: beauty, grace, and talent. I thought that if I could break you, I would feel better. But it only made me smaller." Zinnia walked closer, wiped her hands on her apron, and said softly, "Vanessa, you helped me grow." Vanessa blinked back tears as she asked, "Do you forgive me?" Zinnia's smile deepened. "I forgave you the night of the incident." They stood there for a moment, two women who were once enemies, now quiet survivors of their own insecurities. Vanessa bought a cupcake before leaving. Zinnia watched her go, sunlight glinting off the gold lettering on her window. As evening fell, Zinnia locked the bakery doors and sat by the window, watching the street glow with orange light. She thought of her mother, still selling bread back home, and whispered, "Mama, I did it." She looked down at her hands, still dusted with flour, still steady after all she had endured. The bell on the door jingled. Chef Henry stood there, smiling proudly. "You made me proud, Zinnia." She laughed softly and replied, "You taught me everything." He shook his head and said firmly, "No, you taught yourself to keep baking, even when life turned salty." She smiled. "That's my secret recipe." He nodded. "And it tastes like victory." The night grew quiet. Zinnia turned off the lights one by one. The bakery glowed under the street lamps, a soft, pink dream in a world that once mocked her. Outside, the sign shimmered. Zinnia's golden hands. She looked up at it, tears glistening in her eyes as she whispered, "They hated me for my beauty and my talent, but love built me anyway." Like this video, share and subscribe for more African stories with moral lessons.